The worst thing you can honestly do this busy season is to just keep going and grinding to get to the end of the busy season and realize you really never made any money, right? And so knowing your numbers is the key to this in creating the awareness around your financials. And that's what makes you a true business owner, in my opinion. Welcome back to the Elite Business Advice Podcast. My name is Chris Moore, the founder of Elite Business Advisors, the host of the Elite Business Advice Podcast. I am so excited to be coming to you guys today from our new office here. I am living in just pure chaos, if I'm being honest. We've been here for 2 weeks now, been trying to paint. I don't even have my desk finished put together yet, and that'll be done later this week. I wish you could see the kind of behind the scenes on how I've got this set up, and I have the mic on a stand on part of my desk because it's a perfect height. We're doing it, all right? If this isn't the definition of entrepreneurship, I don't know what is, but we're making it happen. I'm stoked to be here. I'm even more excited when I pulled this up to start recording, and if you're watching this on video, you can tell the lighting in here is much better than the old place we were at. I had a side window, was always battling that for 4 years. Now we've got a couple of windows in here, some good natural light coming in, a lot less artificial light. So I'm just stoked to be here with you guys today. I'm stoked to be coming at you. If you watched our Ask a Painter episode last week or listened to it, I don't actually know what happened with the audio. I was recording it through my AirPods. Maybe it just wasn't great quality through that, or I honestly debated at one point like if it wasn't even picking up from my AirPods. So I apologize for the quality on that. I didn't realize it until I literally went to produce the podcast like 2 days before release, and at that point there was no re-recording it. So I hope you guys enjoyed that. Let's get back to business though. Okay, here's my question for you guys today. What is the goal of busy season? We asked this on our mastermind that we have with our clients once a month, earlier this month. And I was proud that a lot of them were pretty spot on with it. And most people had the same synopsis, just different lingo. But to me, the goal of busy season is to make as much money as humanly possible. Now, understand, I don't want you stressed. I want that to be done morally, ethically, and correctly, right? But at the end of the day, the goal of busy season is to make as much money as we really truthfully can in this window of time. As my good friend Tiffany said on our call last week, money. I think she texted that out, and that became a whole theme from our call. So the goal is we want to make as much money as possible, right? I want to make sure that your bank account is growing this busy season, okay? I want to make sure that if you're putting in extra hours and you have extra stress, and maybe you've scaled up the people or the crews that you have, maybe you've brought on some new hires, you're getting out of your comfort zone, right? I want to make sure that you're seeing the fruits of your labor for the extra, stress, time, energy, executive functioning. I think that's been a big thing for me here in this office is just like, I'm constantly like, okay, I have 20 minutes. Do I put a few pieces of my desk together? Do I go, cut out a couple drywall anchors and get like walls ready to prep so I can paint them later on? Like, I've just been in this constant state, and I know it's the same thing for you guys in busy season. Sometimes you get like 20 minutes or an estimate cancels and you're like, okay, I have an hour. You're like, well, what do I do? And it's like almost paralyzing because there's so many things you're thinking about, right? So I want to make sure that at least it's worth it financially, okay? So I'm going to break down how you should be tracking this, what numbers you should be targeting to prep for next winter, to have the right game plan for this year to capitalize on it. And then my favorite point, the last one, is when and how should the excess money flow into your personal bank account. So I hope it helps. Thanks for plugging in. This is the Elite Business Advice Podcast. This episode is going to be kind of broken down into 3 sections that I just said there in the intro: how to measure, how to plan, and how to reap the harvest without feeling guilty. I'll come back to that thought here in a little bit. And so let's just jump right into it. How do we measure to make sure that our bank account is growing this busy season? I think step 1 is we have to get a baseline number together, right? In order to measure any type of growth or progress, we have to have a baseline number to measure it off of, right? Whether you're losing weight and you are, again, you guys have heard the story that John and I have been going through this year and continuing to progress. It's awesome. Excited for that. I think maybe just 'cause I've been running nonstop for a month probably has been helpful there. But like we had a baseline. We did a weigh-in to get our weight. I did the body fat percentage. Like we got a baseline number together so that then we could measure every single week. I weigh in once a week. I think John does, a handful of times a week at least, so that then I can measure every single week the progress being made, right? It's no different than with your business. And so we look at it like this. I think this is the easiest way to truthfully get a baseline number together for this, is essentially looking at this as if you close your business down right now and everything was paid, all of your liabilities were paid out, all of your vendors, your loans, your line of credit, everything was paid. And all the money you were owed, was brought in from finished jobs, or again, in theory here, even if you walked off every project you're on and the homeowner, the customer paid you up through where you're at in that job, right? If everything was just 100% reconciled, taken care of, how much money would you have in your bank account right this second, right? I always say, what's the number that's like free and clear, right? It's no, again, everything's paid out, everything's collected. Again, even in theory, if you walked off your jobs and all your customers just paid you up to this point, how much money do we have, right? This was something we created years ago with our clients. It's an exercise we do. We have an entire spreadsheet put together for it exclusively for our clients, and we track this religiously every single week. And it's our number one, we call it the accurate bank balance. If you're a client, you know it. It's the number one thing that we can do to ensure you're heading in the right direction. And it also tells us if we're just hovering or if we're leaking backwards, right? So it's been great. It's important to look at it from a point of view like that. The reason why I think it is, so obvious and so beneficial is because cash is going to ebb and flow, right? With your receivables, with your payables. Whenever I speak a lot of times when I kind of talk about this thought, I always say like it keeps your emotions in check, right? Because there's going to be plenty of times you log into your bank account and you look and maybe there's only 10 grand or 20 grand in there, right? And that's scary. But then if you lay it all out on our sheet, you see, okay, yeah, but I've paid everybody off, right? Payroll just came out. All of our subs are paid up. We just paid our Sherwin-Williams bill and paid our credit card off. Like we don't owe anybody anything, right? And then you look at your receivables and you go, oh yeah, we're finishing up a $30,000 project. We got a $20,000 commercial check we're waiting on. They should be coming any day, right? You start seeing this and you're like, okay, so if we just collected everything, we'd have, $80K in the bank or whatever the number is, right? So keep your emotions in check. And I think that also goes the other way too, of sometimes you can log into your bank and be like, wow, we got 80K in there. This is awesome. Yeah, well, everything's paid up and you owe Sherwin-Williams 20 grand, your MX card's 30K, you got payroll coming out tomorrow for another 10, like whatever it is, right? And so it just, having this awareness kind of just keeps that in check, right? We want our people to update this every single week to where, again, we can see, are we growing? Are we just holding where we're at? Or are we leaking backwards and we need to figure out what the heck's going on? It just gives us a good measure with that. I think the worst thing you can honestly do this busy season is to just keep going and grinding to get to the end of the busy season and realize you really never made any money, right? And so knowing your numbers is the key to this and in creating the awareness around your financials. And that's what makes you a true business owner, in my opinion. I think if we can have that awareness, if we can understand where we're at, again, you're going to look at your business in a whole new point of view that maybe you never have, right? The other thing I think, which is great to measure, I never want to admit it, not just because I have a love of it, but job costing in real time, right? Putting in those overhead expenses at the end of the month, seeing, okay, how much money do we make on our projects? And then how much money did the business make this month based on what we produced? Again, not what your P&L may show in QuickBooks. So, having a good measure of that, again, it was a big point of emphasis we made with our clients. And that call was, hey, like, I know you're going to get busy. This is not, like, job costing needs to be done in real time. And by the 10th or 15th of the following month, you should have all your numbers finalized for the previous month so that we can see in real time how are we doing, right? Because the last thing you want to do is kick job costing off to the side. Again, I know it's busy season. I know you might be putting people in positions that are new to them, right? But if all of a sudden you get through May, June, July, and you haven't costed anything, you haven't looked at your monthly numbers and profitability, and all of a sudden come August, September, you realize, like, man, we're not making any money. Maybe you finally listen to this episode, or you listen back to it, and you hear what I talk about and you do it, and you're like, man, we haven't done anything this year, right? Well, then you're going to go dig through your numbers and realize maybe you didn't make money, right? I'd rather know that after May that we didn't make any money to where then we still have June through October to fix it, if that makes sense. So, all right, let's talk about how to plan. Real quick, I want to just kind of hit on, what your cash targets should be at each stage. We talk about cash cushion. What's the security number? And I'll kind of hit on this time of year and kind of what you should have heading into winter. So I'm going to kind of rattle off, kind of some stages and some numbers here. Understand it's all with a grain of salt. Big factor here is, how aggressively are you guys growing, is a big piece of this as well compared to steadiness. But again, when I say cash cushion, this is kind of doing that exercise I said is, if you were closing your business down right now. And so if you're, kind of in the by yourself to 6 painters, call it, anything under maybe $700K of revenue a year, size wise, again, whether you have in-house painters, sub painters, doesn't matter. The goal should be to have probably 25 to 50K as a cushion for you in this stage. Winter time, we would probably want to see that 50 to 75K, especially if you slow down in the winter time. A decent amount. I would lean more towards that 75K. Again, if you're growing quickly and rapidly and spending a lot of money on marketing, leaning towards that 75K number is a great spot to be at. When you're kind of between that 700K to $1 million, maybe you've brought on an admin, maybe 6 to 9 painters, somewhere in kind of that ballpark. We really want that cushion to be like 50 to 75K this time of year. 75 to maybe even 125 heading into winter. If you're at 100, again, depending on growth rate and stuff, and how much your overhead is, how much you slow down, I feel pretty good about that. But 75 is kind of the minimum you should have heading into wintertime. If you're in that $1 million to 1.5 range, typically, maybe have a 1 leadership position, 2 admin and, either project manager or estimator. Maybe 9 to 15 painters. Our cushion goal is about 100K, throughout the busy season, and then wintertime, I say 150, again, knowing that, 150 to 200, depending on where you're at on that. And again, depending on if you're looking to grow as you, build some momentum heading into next year as well, right? If you're at that 1.5 mark, but you're planning to go to that 2.5 maybe even next year, anywhere in that big jump that's going to require some more people, okay, I wouldn't hate having closer to 200K there. So again, understand just kind of some rough benchmarks for you guys. And then if you're over 1.5 million, definitely would recommend having at least 150K, wintertime target, probably 200 to 250. There was a number I came up with one time, and I think it was like, again, super rough baseline, but like 10% of your annual revenue is a great kind of cash target. Like, even if you kind of look back at some of these numbers I'm giving you guys, a lot of it kind of ebbs and flows within that 10% of, annual revenue goal. So, if you're listening to this and you're at 5 million, only having 200K in the bank for winter probably isn't it, right? 500K would be a great spot to be at. And again, you can do some modeling and forecasting at those points to kind of have an idea what you're going to need this winter. So, so the question is, okay, number one, don't beat yourself up. If you're not anywhere near that, or maybe that's the first time you've heard it, it's okay, right? Busy season's coming. That's why I'm doing this episode now, not November. The question is then, how much do we need to make each month over the next 5 months, right? I look at, after this episode comes out, we really have 5 months: June, July, August, September, October. For some of you guys, November is a good month as well. let's just go 5 months. We have 5 months left to close the gap. How do we focus on that, right? So let's say, for example, you need a winter target of, let's just say 150,000, okay? And let's say right now your goal is, or you're sitting at, your baseline is 75,000, right? Which is, again, not a bad spot to be at this time of year. We'd want to see that closer to 100K, so you'll get there pretty quickly probably. So we need to basically, make 75K and stack up 75K over the next 5 months. 75K divided by 5, 15K a month. It needs to be the goal that your business is making after paying yourself, after paying your overhead, after, putting money aside for tax savings, everything. Okay. So you can kind of use that to plan, like, where are we? Where do we want to be at, November 1st? And then how do we chunk that down over the next 5 months to make sure we're tracking in that direction? That'll help you do some backwards planning. What I want to spend the last few minutes of this episode on is, as I said earlier, kind of one of my favorite things to talk about, which is how do we reap the harvest of this, right? It's good to be able to stack up another 75K in the next 5 months. The goal, by the way, in wintertime is not to blow through all of it. It's to survive without digging yourself a huge hole. We don't want to blow through it, right? Then you talk strategy on, okay, how do we just minimize the bleeding, right? How do we just run it break even all winter? How do we, only drop back maybe 40 or 50K, between November 1st and March 1st, right? And then you're running back into, kind of busy season again next year. And so that's the goal, is like worst case scenario, right? But we don't want to just do all this and then just burn through cash and then spend all your time stressing and growing it again, right? Like eventually we want to see to where it's, overall we're trending upward. And there becomes a point in every business where you just really don't need any more money than some of those targets I gave you in the account, right? And this is where really financially as a business owner that I would encourage you to get to, because then I don't really care if your business breaks even every month, right? During busy season. And I'll kind of use an example here for this. Now, understand if you're continuing to want to grow, again, we need to kind of keep up in those cash cushion targets a little bit, right? But there becomes a point where it's if you're a $1.5-2 million business, you don't need 500K in the bank, right? Now, maybe if you're trying to grow from 2 million to 5 million over 1 year, okay, maybe we do, right? Probably going to advise against that for a lot of different reasons, but you can kind of understand some situations where that's the case, right? I know I'm using big numbers here. Just go with the kind of thought behind it though. And so, when we hit those numbers, right? And we get to that point, let's say that, I'll go with the analogy I used earlier. Your goal for wintertime is 150K. All right. And you get there November 1st and you're able to run pretty well break even all winter, right? Maybe it drops down to 130, 140, but then things are starting to pick up, next April, and you're right back at that 150 mark, right? And let's just say that, maybe you're growing 10%, 20%, deciding hey, we're at a good spot here. We just want to kind of hang in this 1.5 million range and maximize our profit, whatever it is, right? At that point, you don't really need more than that cash cushion, right? And so you as the owner can benefit from that, right? If that's your goal, and again, this is where one-on-one coaching can be very helpful in kind of walking through this because every situation is different. But in my opinion, if that's the goal, that means that's how much you need heading into the following winter. Maybe we bump it up to 175 just for some security, but every dollar you make that summer, I don't really care if it goes in your personal bank account, right? If you're able to make 15K a month again next summer, like you're doing this year to get to that 150 number I shared, dude, put that extra 15K into your, I say into your pocket, into your bank account. Do something with it, right? And so that's when the fun conversations happen. And I know, theory and talking about this is much easier than execution and applying it. I get that. I can sit here and talk about how simple it is to make 15K, every month, but going out and actually doing it's a whole nother set of challenges to navigate through. But I think at the end of the day, I want you to understand, it is simplistic. I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not saying it's easy to do. I think a lot of times we overcomplicate it as business owners, right? And so when you understand these benchmarks, when you understand what you need to do, again, it might take a couple years to get there, but when you can get there, that's when you're really going to start reaping the benefit. I see a lot of people are like, man, I'm just grinding every single year and we're not getting ahead. I'm not like seeing the benefit. And it's like, hey, listen, like I'm not going to say it's going to happen overnight, but man, if you're really intentional for a couple of years and you've got somebody to work with to coach you through this, and again, this isn't a plug for coaching, although, I'm always happy to have that conversation with anybody listening to this because I believe in what we do and what our team's been able to do to help people. We're seeing these fun conversations happening more and more as time's gone on over the last few years and people working with us. But man, like let's put that money to good use, right? Let's talk about having a profit account where 5% of every revenue, all the revenue that comes in each day, each week, each month goes aside in a profit account. And every quarter you take half of whatever's in that account out as just an owner's bonus and distribution, right? Maybe you do just take some of that extra money. Hey, we made $5,000 out. I'm going to take an extra $5,000, this month because we can just kind of run it break even, at the end of the day, right? And that's where then the fun conversations start happening. Like I'm big on, generational wealth and just doing things. And not that this has to be for you, but like I'm passionate talking about this stuff. It's like, how do we let your business be an asset that makes money, that provides opportunities for you and your family's, portfolio, whatever that looks like, to then let that money go make more money for you, right? Simple things like even a high yield savings account that can get, 3.5% to 4% interest on your money. Again, there's a strategy at some point in your business. You don't need money in your checking account getting nothing. Let's put some of that aside. Again, separate conversation. Investments, right? Maybe it is some stocks and some mutual funds, and I don't advise in that area. I've got a great financial advisor that I used to share an office with, that I'm happy to connect you with if you ever want to have that conversation. And maybe it's other income sources, other income streams, right? I've shared on here before. It's getting closer and closer to being a reality over the next maybe year to 18 months finally, but like we want to get into real estate and we want to get into doing some stuff, with that. I'm kind of trying to get some clarity on, what makes most sense. Is it a house flip? Is it a long-term rental? Is it short-term rentals? Is it an Airbnb? Like I'm not ready to pull the trigger yet, but I'm finally starting to get my mind at a place because we're getting our business to a point where I can start thinking about that, right? I'm getting our personal lives at a point I can kind of start thinking about these things, right? And so it's like, okay, how does the money from my painting company then go and make more money for us, right? And I don't want you to get distracted. I don't want you to run out. This conversation I'm having with my business coach right now is like, hey, at what point can I start affording to think about other things and versus focusing my time and our resources here? Like that's the conversation I'm having with him. So I encourage you, don't get distracted. All right, don't just get shiny object syndrome and say, oh, I'm going to go start a trash can washing business. And, all of a sudden your painting company tanks because you got distracted and went over here. Like, again, not the point. So I hope that was helpful for you guys. I know there was a lot of information. I love talking about finances. This could have accidentally became a 45-minute long episode. So I tried to keep myself in check. I hope it helps. Look back on our socials, see the picture and videos I took after the intro of what the setup looks like, and I hope you guys have an awesome rest of your day. Thanks for plugging into this week's episode. I hope you're able to take a few nuggets away from it to implement into your business. Remember, knowledge without implementation is useless. If you're curious about what we do and how we help painting contractors all over North America, schedule a free business analysis meeting with us at www.elitebusinessadvisors.com. Our entire team of advisors have ran and managed painting companies just like myself and are here to help support you on your journey. We have packages available for contractors at every stage of business, from flying solo and just starting out, all the way to multi-million-dollar businesses. And lastly, if you loved this episode, please leave us a rating and a review. It helps others on the platform find our podcast, and it could be the best blessing that's ever happened to them thanks to you. Thanks for plugging in, and we'll see you back for next week's episode.